Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty and watched the enemy ships move closer to New Haven. The blue ships belonged to the Zephyrians, who had been friends with humans for more than 100 years. These same aliens had helped humans build colonies across the galaxy and shared their technology freely. Now they surrounded the human world like hunters circling their prey. The planet below held 3 million human settlers who had lived there for 50 years. They had built cities and farms and schools. Children had been born there who knew no other home. The Zephyrians had been at the colony founding ceremony and had celebrated with champagne and songs. Commander Lisa Kane walked up to Morrison with bad news written across her face. She carried a message pad that glowed with urgent text. Her hands shook slightly as she spoke. "Sir, the Zephyrians are demanding we leave New Haven immediately. Ambassador Vex says our mining rights were never real and that we must go within 72 hours. Morrison felt anger rise in his chest like hot metal. The Zephyrians had signed the original treaty that gave humans the right to settle New Haven. Their own lawyers had written parts of the agreement. Now they claimed it meant nothing. "What else did the ambassador say?" Morrison asked. Kane read from her pad with a steady voice that hid her own anger. "He said the Zephyrian Republic no longer accepts human claims to any territory that was established before the new accords. He says all 17 human colonies are now in disputed space. The new accords were a treaty signed 6 months earlier by every major alien power in the galaxy. Every power except humanity. While Earth diplomats waited for an invitation that never came, the other species had met in secret. They had redrawn the map of known space and decided humans had no place in it." Morrison watched a massive Zephyrian warship position itself directly above New Haven City. The ship was 3 kilometers long and armed with weapons that could turn the entire city into glass. Its shadow fell across the Capitol building where human children attended school. "They think we will just pack up and leave," Morrison said to Kane. "They believe because we are the newest species in space we have no backbone." Other officers on the bridge turned to listen. Communications Officer Carl Davis stopped his work. Weapons Officer Betty Clark looked up from her console. They all knew what this meant for their people. Morrison thought about the last 2 centuries of human expansion into space. Humans had been grateful when the Zephyrians first made contact. Earth was still recovering from the climate wars and needed friends among the stars. The blue-skinned aliens had seemed like perfect allies with their advanced technology and peaceful culture. Humans had worked hard to prove themselves worthy partners. They had shared their own discoveries in medicine and engineering. Human soldiers had fought alongside Zephyrian troops in 3 different conflicts. Human scientists had helped develop new faster-than-light drives that benefited all species. The friendship had seemed real and lasting. Zephyrian students attended human universities. Human families lived on Zephyrian worlds. Trade flowed freely between their territories. Cultural exchanges had created art and music that both species loved. But apparently friendship meant nothing when profit was involved. The new accords had given human colony worlds to other species based on location and resources. New Haven sat on one of the largest deposits of rare metals in the galaxy. The Corvani Empire wanted those metals for their war machine. The Thek Confederation needed them for their crystal cities. Morrison pulled up a star map on his personal display. 17 red dots marked human colonies that were now claimed by other species. Millions of human settlers faced the choice of abandoning their homes or living under alien rule. Everything humans had built over 2 centuries could disappear in 72 hours. "Sir, what are your orders?" Kane asked. Morrison looked at the Zephyrian fleet surrounding New Haven. 12 heavy cruisers and 40 escort ships. Against his single destroyer, the odds were impossible. Any fight would end quickly and badly for the humans. But Morrison was not thinking about fighting today. He was thinking about something his grandfather had told him about humanity. The old man had fought in the last Earth War before alien contact. He had seen cities burn and nations fall, but he had also seen them rebuild stronger than before. Humans have long memories and longer grudges, his grandfather had said. We remember every kindness and every betrayal. We may forgive, but we never forget. Morrison opened a communication channel to Earth Command. The message would take 6 hours to reach home through the quantum relay network. By then, the crisis at New Haven would be over one way or another. This is Admiral Morrison of the Liberty, reporting from New Haven system. The Zephyrians have revealed their true intentions. They demand evacuation of all human colonies based on their new Accords treaty. They believe we will simply abandon everything we have built. He paused and looked once more at the alien ships that threatened his people. I want Earth Command to know that today marks a turning point. The species who we called friends have shown they see us as nothing more than squatters in their galaxy. They expect us to leave quietly and gratefully for whatever scraps they allow us to keep. Morrison smiled, but there was no warmth in it. His bridge crew saw something in their admiral face that made them stand straighter. Send a message to every human colony and every human ship. Tell them the Zephyrians and their allies have made their choice. They have chosen to see humanity as weak and forgettable. They will learn how wrong they are. He closed the channel and turned to Kane. Signal the evacuation ships to begin loading civilians from New Haven. We will not fight today because today we cannot win. But humans do not forget. And someday, we will remind the galaxy what happens when you betray a species that never stops remembering. 5 years had passed since the day humans called the Great Betrayal. Captain Ben Clark piloted his merchant ship Wanderer through the docking bay of Kepler Station. The massive space station floated in neutral territory between alien empires. It was one of the few places where human ships could still trade freely. The galaxy had moved forward as if nothing important had happened. The alien species divided the former human colonies among themselves like children sharing toys. Zephyrians took the agricultural worlds. Corvani claimed the mining planets. Thek absorbed the research stations. Each species found reasons why they deserved what humans had built. The Galactic Council now met without human representatives. They discussed the human question in their debates like humans were a problem to be solved. Some aliens suggested offering Earth a junior membership in their new order. Others wanted to restrict human movement to their home system. Clark docked his ship and walked through the station corridors. Alien merchants filled the trading halls. Zephyrian families toured the recreation levels. Corvani students attended the university classrooms. Life continued normally for everyone except humans. Dr. Amy Foster waited for Clark in a small cantina near the academic quarter. She worked as a researcher, which gave her access to alien conferences and libraries. Her real job was gathering information that might help humanity survive in their new isolation. Amy slid a data chip across the table when Clark sat down. She kept her voice low because alien ears might be listening. The chip contained months of careful observation and secret recordings. The Corvani are developing new shield technology that can stop most human weapons, she said. They have increased ship production by 300% in the past 2 years. Every major species is building larger fleets. Clark picked up the chip and put it in his jacket pocket. His ship would carry it to Earth along with similar reports from other human agents. The information helped Earth understand what their former friends were planning. Any word from the colonies that stayed? Clark asked. Amy looked sad when she answered. The families who chose not to evacuate are being integrated into local populations. Their children learn alien history in alien schools. They speak alien languages at home now. In 1 generation, they will forget they were ever human. This was the cruelest part of the betrayal. Some human families had refused to abandon their homes when the evacuation ships came. They chose to live under alien rule rather than start over on Earth. Now their children grew up thinking of themselves as Zephyrian or Corvani citizens. But the aliens did not know everything that was happening in human space. Ships appeared in empty star systems that were supposed to be uninhabited. Mining operations started in asteroid belts that official records said contained nothing valuable. Construction began on facilities that did not exist on any government reports. Humanity had not been idle during their 5 years of apparent defeat. They had learned to move quietly and work in shadows. Old mining ships carried more than ore. Scientific vessels explored more than empty space. Trading convoys delivered more than commercial goods. Clark finished his drink and prepared to leave. He had other meetings on Kepler Station with other human agents. Each one would give him pieces of information to carry home. The council thinks, "We have accepted our new place in the galaxy," Clark said to Amy. "They believe we are beaten and grateful for whatever they allow us to keep." "Are we beaten?" Amy asked. Clark smiled, and there was something cold in his expression, something that would have worried any alien who saw it. "Humans do not forget, Amy. We are very good at looking weak while we prepare to be strong." Amy nodded and gathered her research materials. She would return to her official job at the Xenobiology Institute. She would smile at her alien colleagues and participate in their academic discussions. She would seem like a harmless human scientist, grateful for their acceptance. But she would also continue watching and listening and remembering every slight comment about human inferiority, every casual assumption that humans had no future among the stars, every piece of technology that could be copied or improved. Clark left the cantina and walked back toward his ship. The station buzzed with normal activity. Alien families shopped in the markets, business deals were made in the conference rooms. Students attended lectures about galactic history that barely mentioned humanity. None of them noticed the quiet, human merchant who had just received intelligence reports from across the galaxy. None of them thought about what humans might be doing in their own space during these years of silence. They had convinced themselves that the human question was solved. Clark passed a group of young Zephyrian officers discussing their latest military exercises. They laughed about human technology and human tactics. They joked about how easy it had been to take human colonies without firing a shot. They were proud of their bloodless victory over the inferior species. As he listened to their laughter, Clark thought about reports he had read. Reports about new human shipyards hidden in dark nebulae. Reports about weapon tests in empty systems. Reports about volunteers training for missions that had no official names. The Zephyrians had forgotten that humans had been warriors before they became space travelers. They had forgotten the history of a species that had fought its way up from caves and forests to touch the stars. They thought 5 years of quiet meant 5 years of surrender. Clark reached his ship and began the departure sequence. His cargo holds contained legal trade goods that would satisfy any customs inspection. They also contained data chips and encrypted messages and small devices that looked like common electronics. The Wanderer left Kepler Station and headed toward Earth. Around the galaxy, similar ships carried similar cargoes toward human space. The network of information and materials flowed quietly through established trade routes. On Earth, government officials studied the reports and made plans that had no public names. Military commanders designed ships that appeared on no budget documents. Scientists developed technologies that solved problems nobody admitted existed. Humanity was learning patience in these quiet years. They were learning to wait for the right moment to remind the galaxy that humans never forget their friends or their enemies. 10 years after the Great Betrayal, a new threat appeared at the edge of the galaxy. The aliens called them Devourers because they consumed entire star systems to fuel their machine bodies. These mechanical beings came from beyond known space, with weapons that turned planets into metal and energy. The Galactic Council faced their first major crisis since dividing human colonies among themselves. 3 massive fleets had been sent to stop the Devourers. All 3 fleets had been destroyed completely. Millions of alien lives were lost along with thousands of warships. Admiral Morris Webb commanded what remained of the Zephyrian Navy. His people had lost 12 colonies to the mechanical invaders. Refugee ships filled with homeless families crowded around their remaining worlds. The proud blue-skinned species that had once been the strongest power in the galaxy now begged for help. Webb stood in the pristine halls of the human embassy on Nexus Prime. The building was small and simple compared to the grand structures that housed other species. For 10 years it had been mostly empty because humans were rarely invited to galactic events. Ambassador Helen Ross received Webb in her modest office. The room contained simple furniture and a few pieces of human art. Behind her desk hung a painting of New Haven as it had looked before the evacuation. The image showed human cities surrounded by golden wheat fields under blue skies. "We need your ships," Webb said without wasting time on diplomatic pleasantries. "The Devourers have broken through our outer defense lines. At current rates, they will reach the core worlds within 2 years." Ross smiled politely and offered Webb a chair. She poured tea from a simple ceramic pot and acted like they were discussing weather instead of galactic extinction. Her calm manner seemed to irritate the desperate Zephyrian admiral. "I am afraid Earth fleet is rather small, Admiral Webb. Surely the mighty Galactic Council can handle this mechanical threat without help from such a minor species." Webb leaned forward in his chair. His blue face had turned darker with frustration. "You have ships, Ross. Our intelligence networks have detected construction activity in human systems. You are building something." Ross sipped her tea and shook her head sadly. "Your intelligence sources are mistaken, Admiral. We have exactly what we declared in our last military report. 47 aging cruisers and 130 escort vessels. Hardly enough to make a difference against an enemy that destroys entire fleets." What Webb did not know was that humanity's real navy was hidden in the dark spaces between stars. The ships he knew about were decoys maintained just enough to pass casual inspection. The real human fleet had grown from the ashes of betrayal into something the galaxy had never seen. Hidden shipyards and empty nebulae had built 700 warships over the past decade. Each vessel incorporated the best alien technology that human agents had quietly acquired. Human engineers had improved on designs that aliens thought were perfect. Human tacticians had studied every battle the Devourers had fought. General Chris Murphy watched Webb meeting with Ross from Earth Deep Command Center. The facility was buried beneath the Swiss mountains where it could survive almost any attack. Holographic displays showed the true scope of human military power that had been built in secret. Around Murphy stood officers who remembered the evacuation of New Haven. They had been young lieutenants and captains 10 years ago. Now they commanded fleets that could challenge any alien empire. Every one of them had volunteered for assignments that officially did not exist. "Should we help them, sir?" asked Colonel Janet Pierce, who served as Murphy aide. She had been present at the first Zephyrian demands for human evacuation. She remembered the arrogance in Ambassador Vek's voice. Murphy's expression remained stone cold as he considered the question. Behind him, displays showed Devourer advances across alien territory. Red markers indicated worlds that had been consumed. Blue zones showed refugee populations fleeing toward galactic core. They made their choice 10 years ago, Janet. They decided they did not need humanity friendship or colonies or trust. They thought we were weak and forgettable. Let them learn what that choice costs. Pierce shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, the Devourers will kill billions of innocent people. Many of those aliens never voted to betray us." Murphy turned away from the tactical displays. His voice carried the weight of 10 years planning and preparation. "The Council killed 3 million of our people when they forced evacuation of our colonies. They scattered families and destroyed communities. They erased our presence from worlds we had built with our own hands." He walked to another display that showed human colonies as they had been. Green worlds full of cities and farms and spaceports. Places where human children had played in alien sunshine and learned to call distant worlds home. They made those choices because they thought humans would forget. They believed we would quietly accept whatever scraps they threw us and be grateful. They never considered that we might remember every broken promise and every stolen world. Murphy paused as new reports came in from the warfront. The Corvani Empire had lost their industrial heartland to Devourer assault. The crystal cities of the Thek Confederation were going dark one by one. Even the proud species that had redrawn galactic borders were learning fear. "We could stop this war, Colonel. Our new ships and weapons could turn the tide against the Devourers. But that would save the same species who decided we had no place among the stars. It would rescue the governments that stole our children's future." Pierce nodded slowly as she understood her commander reasoning. "What happens when they are desperate enough, sir?" Murphy smiled, but there was no warmth in the expression. "When they have lost everything that matters to them, then we will discuss terms. When they understand that betraying humanity has consequences, then we might consider helping them survive those consequences." On the display screens, Devourer fleets continued their advance into the heart of galactic civilization. Alien refugees fled toward core worlds that might not survive another year of war. The species who had divided human colonies among themselves learned what it meant to lose everything they had built. Murphy watched it all with the patience of someone who had waited 10 years for justice. Humanity had learned to think in decades rather than years. They had learned to prepare for the moment when their former friends would need them most. Humans do not forget, Colonel Pierce. And we do not forgive easily. The galaxy will learn both lessons before this war ends. 3 years of war against the Devourers had torn the galaxy apart. The machine invaders consumed worlds faster than the alien fleets could defend them. Billions of refugees fled toward the galactic core while their homeworlds turned to metal. And ash behind them, President Nathan Hayes sat in the Oval Office reading reports from across known space. Earth had become wealthy during the war as human merchants sold supplies to desperate refugees. Human colonies in the Outer Rim grew rich from displaced populations who needed new homes. The irony was not lost on Hayes that humanity had become the galaxy's most prosperous species while their former allies faced extinction. The same worlds that had been considered too remote and worthless for aliens to claim now sheltered millions of survivors. Secretary of Defense Maria Santos entered with the latest intelligence summary. Her face showed the weariness of someone who had watched civilizations fall for 3 years. The report she carried contained news that would have shocked the galaxy 13 years ago. The Zephyrian Republic has fallen, Mr. President. Their home fleet was destroyed defending New Zephyr yesterday. Admiral Webb's ship was among the casualties along with most of their government. Hayes nodded as he processed this information. Webb had visited Earth 7 times in the past 3 years. Each visit had been more desperate than the last as his people died and his worlds burned. The last time he had offered to restore all former human colonies in exchange for military aid. Hayes had politely declined each request. The man who had once demanded human evacuation from New Haven had learned to beg for human help. But begging came too late and cost too much to matter. What about their civilian population? Hayes asked. Santos consulted her datapad with grim efficiency. Scattered across refugee camps on 15 different worlds, maybe 50 million Zephyrians left alive out of their original population of 3 billion. Most of their culture and history died with New Zephyr. Hayes walked to the window that looked out over Washington, D.C. The city bustled with activity as human civilization thrived while others crumbled. Construction cranes built new government buildings to house the expanded. Bureaucracy needed to manage Earth's new position in the galaxy. Above the blue sky, humanity hidden fleet waited among the stars. Orbital shipyards that had been secret for a decade now worked openly to build the largest navy in galactic history. What had begun as revenge for betrayal had become preparation for galactic leadership. Are they still broadcasting their apologies? Hayes asked. Yes, sir. Full confession of crimes against humanity. Acknowledgement of the illegal seizure of human colonies. Offers of reparations and territorial concessions. They are broadcasting on all frequencies hoping someone will answer. Santos paused as she read the most recent message. They are also offering to surrender completely to human authority. They want to become a protectorate under Earth government rather than face extinction alone. Hayes considered this offer as he had considered all the others. 13 years ago, the Zephyrians had been the strongest naval power in the galaxy. Their technology had been superior to human designs. Their diplomats had shaped galactic policy for centuries. Now they were broken refugees begging for protection from the same species they had dismissed as irrelevant. The wheel of fortune had turned completely, and they found themselves at the bottom looking up at their former victims. What about the other species? Hayes asked. Santos turned to the next page of her report. The Corvani Empire controls only their homeworld and 2 mining colonies. They lost everything else to Devourer advances. The Thek Confederation is gone completely. Their crystal cities provided excellent materials for Devourer construction projects. She continued reading the list of fallen civilizations. Species that had redrawn galactic borders without consulting humanity now existed only in refugee camps and history books. The new accords that had excluded Earth from decision-making had become worthless paper. The Joint Chiefs are asking again about deploying our fleet, Mr. President. They believe we could end this war within 6 months if we committed our full naval strength. Hayes returned to his desk and picked up a photo from 13 years ago. It showed him as a young senator visiting New Haven Colony. He stood with human families who had built farms and schools and hospitals on that distant world. Children played in the background while their parents worked to create something permanent. Those same children had been forced to abandon their homes when the aliens decided humanity had no right to exist beyond Earth orbit. Some families had stayed and watched their kids grow up as alien citizens. Others had returned to Earth as refugees in their own species. Tell the Joint Chiefs what I have told them before, Maria. We will act when it serves humanity interests, not before. The species who created this situation must live with the consequences of their choices. Hayes put the photo back on his desk and looked at the latest casualty reports. Numbers that would have horrified him 13 years ago now seemed like natural results of galactic politics. When you betrayed your allies, you could not expect them to save you from your mistakes. The construction reports from the outer rim. Ahead of schedule, sir. The new orbital facilities will be ready within 2 years. Industrial capacity is increasing by 15% each quarter. We will soon have the ability to build fleets larger than anything the galaxy has ever seen. Hayes smiled as he thought about the future these preparations would create. Not a future designed to save the species who had betrayed humanity, but a future built on the lessons that betrayal had taught. The galaxy would be rebuilt according to human values and human leadership. Outside his window, the sun set over a world that had become the center of galactic power through patience and memory. Humanity had waited 13 years for their former allies to destroy themselves through short-sighted greed. Now they would wait a little longer before deciding what to build from the wreckage. Schedule a cabinet meeting for tomorrow, Maria. It is time to begin discussing the post-war galaxy and humanity role in shaping it. The age of alien leadership is ending. The age of human responsibility is about to begin. The war ended not with victory parades but with exhaustion and silence. The Devourers had consumed themselves after destroying 3/4 of galactic civilization. Their machine programming finally broke down from processing too much organic matter. What remained was scattered metal debris and the ashes of once proud species. Fleet Admiral Tony Martinez stood on the command deck of the HNS Retribution as it led humanity-revealed fleet toward Nexus Prime. 2,000 ships stretched behind his flagship in perfect formation. Each vessel represented years of secret construction and hidden preparation. The same species who had once dismissed human military capability now watched in terror as the largest armada in galactic history approached their last major station. Survivors huddled in refugee camps while their former enemies demonstrated the power that had been hidden for over a decade. Below them, Nexus Prime Station held representatives from every surviving species in the galaxy. Zephyrians who numbered in the thousands instead of billions. Corvani nobles whose empire had shrunk to a single system. Tech crystals that glowed dimly without their great confederation to power them. They had gathered for what historians would call the Reconciliation Conference. The name was ironic since humanity felt no need for reconciliation with species who had betrayed them. This was not a meeting of equals but a presentation of terms to the defeated. Ambassador Helen Ross had been promoted to High Representative of the Human Federation. She would address the assembled aliens via holographic projection rather than dignify them with her physical presence. Her words carried the authority of a species that had waited 16 years for this moment. The Human Federation offers protection to all surviving species, Ross announced to the hushed assembly. Her voice was calm and professional as she delivered humanity final judgment. We will rebuild what was destroyed and restore what was lost. Never again will one species' greed threaten the stability of civilized space. In the audience, former Zephyrian Ambassador Vex raised a trembling hand. Age and defeat had bent the once proud diplomat who had demanded human evacuation from New Haven. His voice cracked as he spoke the question every alien wanted answered. What are your terms? Ross smiled with the patience of someone who had rehearsed this moment for years. Behind her stood holographic displays showing the true extent of human industrial and military power. Numbers that would have seemed impossible 16 years ago now represented simple facts. Our terms are simple, Ambassador Vex. You will remember that when you excluded us from your new accords and stole our colonies, you sealed your own fate. You will remember that every child who died in the Devourer War could have been saved if you had chosen honor over greed. The alien delegates shifted uncomfortably as they absorbed the magnitude of their situation. They had expected negotiation or at least discussion of terms. Instead, they received a lecture on the consequences of betraying humanity. You will also remember that we watched your civilizations burn. We could have intervened at any time during the past 3 years. We chose not to act just as you chose to betray us. Our patience became your punishment. Admiral Martinez listened from his command deck as Ross delivered humanity's final verdict on the species who had tried to erase them from galactic history. Around him, human officers monitored alien communications and fleet movements. Every conversation was recorded for future reference. General Chris Murphy's voice came through Martinez's private communication channel from Earth Command. The old soldier had waited 16 years to see this day when humanity enemies would learn the cost of their arrogance. All stations report ready, Admiral. The new age begins today. Martinez nodded as he watched human ships move to establish patrol routes around former alien territories. Humanity would not merely replace the fallen governments, but transform the entire structure of galactic civilization. The chaos of the past decades would give way to human order. Indeed it does, General. The galaxy learned too late that humans do not forget. Now they will learn what happens when we choose to remember. On Nexus Prime Station, the alien delegates absorbed their new reality in stunned silence. The Galactic Council that had excluded humanity from decision-making no longer existed. The species who had divided human colonies among themselves now depended on human mercy for survival. Ross continued her presentation with the detailed terms of galactic reconstruction. Alien survivors would be relocated to designated worlds under human supervision. Their children would learn human history alongside their own cultural traditions. Most importantly, they would study the events that led to their civilization's downfall. Every school in the new Galactic Federation will teach the same lesson, Ross announced. When you betray your allies, you cannot expect them to save you from the consequences. When you steal from the weak, you should not expect mercy from the strong. The education requirements were not requests, but commands backed by the largest military force in galactic history. Human teachers would ensure that future generations understood how their ancestors had destroyed themselves through greed and short-sightedness. Martinez watched as the first wave of human ships departed to begin occupation duties across former alien territories. They carried not just weapons but construction equipment and medical supplies. Humanity would rebuild the galaxy, but according to human values and human leadership. The reconstruction would take generations to complete. Entire species needed new homeworlds after losing theirs to devourer consumption. Industrial capacity had to be rebuilt from scattered remnants. Most importantly, the political structure of galactic civilization required fundamental change. But humanity had learned patience. During their 16 years of preparation, they understood that lasting change took time and careful planning. The galaxy would be rebuilt properly rather than quickly, with human oversight ensuring that past mistakes were not repeated. Ross concluded her address with the new galactic motto that would be carved into monuments across 1,000 worlds. Humans do not forget, and they do not forgive lightly. Remember this lesson well, for it will not be taught twice. The age of human ascendancy had begun, built on the foundation of alien betrayal and watered with the tears of species who had underestimated the power of memory. The galaxy would never again make the mistake of dismissing humanity as irrelevant or forgettable. As the last alien delegates filed out of the conference hall, they carried with them the knowledge that their civilizations had died not from external invasion but from their own choices. The devourers had been the instrument of destruction, but betrayal had been the cause.